The majority of people are thoughtless, carefree, not prone to analyzing feelings, people, or events. It just doesn't occur to them to do so. Work, eat, sleep, excrete. Live and die. No reason, no rhyme, and everything's fine. These are the healthy people. As long as the base physical needs are satisfied and life is more or less routine, the mind is useful only for aping the behavior of others in their social cluster. There is no personal curiosity to satisfy, no longings to fulfill, nothing in the entire spectrum of life to inspire anything more than periodic daydreaming. They could manage a department store or a concentration camp with equal emotion. Then there are the sensitive, analytical few who are prone to question why things are as miserable as they are. Maybe they were less rebellious in youth to successfully overcome the barrage of repressive bulldung liberally doled out at that stage of life. This is when we are trained to thoughtlessly assent to insane demands and demoralizing repressions from schools and authority figures. But for most, this pattern of being jerked around on a leash never appears strange. They get relief by issuing abuse to others. Or they receive enough rewards, toys, and moral support not to notice the absurdity, or at least not be scarred by it. But in the back rows of life there are those solitary personalities who deeply consider every piece of nonsense others intimidate them with in the misguided assumption that it was issued with some kind of logic or consideration. And as time carries us from grammar school incubators of insanity to adolescent and adult social forums, the sensitive are too traumatically impacted by this rubbish to function fully. The sabotage has taken hold of their psyche. They may be considered sick. The system which arrested their healthy development is the system which now condemns them. They were broken because they paid too much respect to the coercive propaganda of the system which now assumes no responsibility for the ruination it inspired. Whatever the cause, a yoke has been fitted around their necks to forever keep their heads low before these benighted swine. If we're ever going to turn this around, it must be preceded by the demolition of every sense of obligation to please others. They have no vested interest in your well-being. All ties to people and past events must be severed. Your first and only interest must be seeking and maintaining that zeal for living you were born with. You must attack and destroy with a fanatical resolve every barrier to a vigorous and joyful life. The system doesn't care whether you live or die. For you to go after your share of life is seen as an intrusion into their desire to keep you in servitude. The easiest way they can keep you enslaved to them is to scare you into remaining a milquetoast, weak-willed, and depressed. It is because of the maliciousness of this attack upon your freedom that you must battle every negative idea you experience with resolute anger. Fear doesn't exist. It is not a quality of this life. The nervous sensation which we call fear is just the basic response which readies the body to action when an unusual situation occurs. The primary fears are of falling and of a loud sound. When an invasive personality gets a hook into our basic fear responses, that becomes the point when these useful nervous sensations get distorted into being associated by us with an event which has no fear about it. The purpose of this book is to bring definition to these undefined feelings, to demystify that which seems unexplainable and threatening to the person experiencing it. It also is intended to provide some insight for those whom such experiences are wholly alien. The viewpoints I've presented here originate from my belief that any perception of fear is an internal misrepresentation caused by intrusive personalities and a confining environment, rather than by the inherent character of the individual. In the course of my solitary odyssey, exploring the causes behind these effects, I've discovered that fear can only exist when the mind gives more respect to what's going on outside than to what's going on inside. The kinds of fears which produce depression, anxiety attacks, and other disempowering states are not concepts we are born with. They can only exist when our clever imaginations are pressed into service by traumatic experiences in youth. From that vulnerable point onward, the individual feverishly creates intricate depictions of horror in their mind's eye based on the clumsily issued threats of those in their midst. In time, these imaginings appear to be our own reality-based conclusions to life's experiences, and it becomes difficult to truly believe that these personal concepts are actually foreign fictions designed to keep the mind's will in abeyance.